Hello, everybody. It is February 28th of 2025. Thought I would get into a journal reading, and it'll probably be a lot because the session that goes with this, it's only 30 minutes. I lost the recording. I don't know if one of my saboteur parts in there turned it off or what, but don't have it. Sorry about that. So I'll just read all the journals and excuse my voice. A couple days ago, I did a TED Talk with a lot of screaming and I kind of blew out my vocal cords. So I took yesterday off so that they could heal up and not quite there, but I think y'all could hear me just as well. So I will get started. So this is June 21st of 2024. It says, I just saw an image of a bunch of dolls exactly the same height, maybe 18 inches tall, sitting in half circle, all of their feet pointed towards the center. They're all dressed differently with different hair and faces. That itself was placed in front of a doorway. I think it's somehow connected to Anne or Circus Anne, which are two of my parts. Just before I was waking up, one of the parts was showing me a hand signal. It's some sort of rocking motion with the hands cupped together. But Dixie jumped on me to wake me up right in that moment. Perhaps that's why she jumped on me to wake me up so that I would remember. Otherwise, it might have just stayed a dream. I hope I get to see it again. And I believe that is this symbol. I told myself last night to go and get a cigarette, but the other part said no. So I drifted off to sleep and slept very well. Now I'm out in the garden early in the morning while it's cool having a cigarette. And I was thinking about those dolls. I was thinking about that. Then I remembered hearing someone say, pick up one of those dolls. I chose Raggedy Ann because I recognized her. They told me that that would be mine forever. That must have been put in a file somewhere because I could 20 years later. Oh, because how could 20 years later those army generals know to use that? And I'm just now remembering that we weren't all dressed in Raggedy Ann. Each child had its own doll character and face. Oh, yes, and I just remembered I'm being told that there were 13 different dolls. I chose the doll. Then all of the dolls were picked up and put in the bottom drawer of a file cabinet, and I was led into a room. Dad was there, and this is when I first met Jack. And actually, I realized later, no, I met Jack many years earlier. I also went through, and Jack is my CIA handler. He had two names, Jack Sampson or Sam Jackson, depending on if he was working for America or Great Britain. It also went through my mind on one of Emma's interviews where someone was talking about how the military scientific aspect of training was in competition with or worked alongside of the satanic abuse side of things. Dad preferred the scientific view. I think it was because of what happened to Mom at that ritual and how Rocky had hid from them for so long. Dad assumed that there must have been some sort of failure with the SRA stuff. He wanted to go back to his military experience in conditioning. He's talking to Jack, the handler. Jack is shaking his head about the occult conditioning and nodding his head for the scientific conditioning. He is saying, yes, it's just such a better way to go. It's more precise. Then Jack led me through the door into the room that the dolls were sitting in front of. They sat me down in a chair that had scientific equipment all around it, and there were wires and cords and buttons and lights all over the place. This is when my firewall of file cabinet was installed. I was given electric shocks, and I was going to say pins were put into me, but it was actually a needle, a couple or three needles, and I was injected with something. I remember the room got skinny. That's when I disassociated. And I have this in italics. It says, like a Tasmanian devil, you will collect all information and all experience and all perception from your conditioning and training and file it away deep in the bottom drawer of your file cabinet. it can only be accessed by your master slash handler, which would be my dad or Jack. When they brought me back with another injection, Jack was asking me how I liked my doll. I said I liked it just fine. I hugged her. He said, "You be sure and cup her in your hands and rock her and keep her safe and sound." Then he made the hand signal, and I promised him and Daddy that I would. I recall later when I was recovering from my torture, I would hang on to my Raggedy Ann doll and she would comfort me. I would cup her in my hands and swoop her into my arms and rock her. So this had to have been after my 6th birthday and before my 7th. This is when my training camp experience began. I believe the parts said no to a cigarette last night so they could allow me to sleep. They knew that I would not ignore them and come outside and sit in my chair and have a cigarette. So everyone agreed to let me sleep and tell their story in the morning. And I would like to thank all of you because I'm really loving and enjoying sleeping well again. They all agreed that as long as I listen to them during the day, that there's no reason to keep me up at night. So I will pay attention during the day and also at night during my dreams, because that's what dream operates. I have a part called dream. And they also seem to have access to Dixie, who's my dog, who is acting on their behalf as well as through Claire and Spirit. Claire is the clairvoyant part of me, and Spirit, part of me that embodies the Spirit of God, which I had suspected, but I wasn't quite sure how that was happening. Now I understand. And Siggy is allowing it because she gets to smoke. File cabinet is the deeper firewall, and Siggy is the third firewall after her. I asked Siggy if there was a way to break her firewall without a cigarette. She said only if I'm willing to poke myself with pins. So pins is the next firewall, then Siggy. So I'm asking Pins if there's a way we can get through her firewall without harming ourselves. I'll let her think about that for a while. That way we can quit smoking and access memories. She said she'll think about it for a while. Dad had all three of us tested, meaning me and my two sisters, and Jack picked me because of my test scores. He was telling Dad that he needs to back off of Angie and Mary because there's no way he could hide all three of us being torn up. One child you could explain away is that they were accident prone or rebellious, or because I was a tom girl or bad or something. But there's no way you could explain away all three of them. He also gave Dad the idea for the tape recorder under Mom's bed with some common commands so that Mom would not get wise. He told Dad that he could add in his own commands as long as they stayed within certain guidelines. Then we left training camp, all four of us. Jack left in his car. Jackie is the first firewall for the satanic practices of the cult as a very young girl. Anne is the firewall for the scientific experimentation when I was 6 years old, but close to 7. Pins is the firewall for the experimentation in my basement at home. Siggy was the firewall for the actual killings and stage shows. Night is the firewall for the army experiences. All of them were given injections. My parts were just showing me through plant, another part that takes care of plants, that the firewalls have vines that all connect to each other. And if you allow them to grow, each successive one gets stronger and chokes out other parts, but strengthens walls. So if you can cut the vines away, it won't choke out the other parts or strengthen a wall. So as I'm sitting outside in my garden, just looking at and thinking about my parts and my mind and the programming, and I'm looking outside at at my plants and my garden and how things grow, it's like God put them together for me because my garden, I didn't have this garden until the year 2020, and my memories began in October of 23. I was baptized Easter of 23. My memories began October of 23, and my counseling began April of 24. So I remember starting that garden and just being obsessed with it. I couldn't get enough. I couldn't make it big enough. I couldn't grow enough stuff. And it was my first year and I had abysmal failures in a lot of areas, but um I was just obsessed and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, God, why are first I was obsessing on transcribing Alan Watts material for 17 years, 20 years. And then Alan died and I finished the transcripts and now I was obsessing on this garden. And now I understand why, because God needed to communicate things to me in a certain way. And the garden has helped me figure out a lot of the ways that my programming works. Excuse me. Uh, I thought I was going to sneeze there for a second. So I'll get back to this. My parts were just showing me through plant that the firewalls have vines that all connect to each other. The firewalls connect through vines. And if you allow them to grow, the vines, each successive one gets stronger and chokes out other parts. So think about the vines of, say, a pumpkin plant or any kind of vines. If you let them get out of control, they'll choke each other out. But if you prune them just right, they'll grow properly. Um, so it chokes out other parts, but it can strengthen walls. So if you can cut the vines away, it won't choke out the other parts or strengthen a wall. So that also applies to if you can figure out your firewalls and just figuring them out is pruning them, cutting them. So that's what I was understanding here. Jackie's vine, the bestiality experience when I was 3, move up and through the others to Katerina. Now, Katerina was a bestiality experience when I was in my 20s in the army. If there was another instilled after Katerina, they would grow up and through other firewalls to the next similar one. The firewalls are all connected through vines, or you could call them threads. The vines on the leaves of the firewall cover over and even choke out parts that are not firewalls. So again, you get a firewalls like my 3-year-old bestiality experience and the 20-year-old bestiality experience had vines connecting to each other, but there were other parts created in between not connected with bestiality. So if you allow those vines to grow and the leaves on the vines, they'll start choking out other parts. But if you can keep them trimmed, not cut them off from each other, but prune away the excess, the parts will thrive and grow. But the trick is to discover the threads between parts. And in discovering them, um, I believe it cuts them because they're no longer hidden, if that makes sense. Pins firewall. Now, Pins was an MKU where I was stuck with Pins. Pins firewall moves up into Siggy, and then the next firewall of a similar nature. In this case, the scientific firewall. Jackie's firewalls are for satanic ritual abuse. The vines that grow out of the original firewall twist around the parts, they choke them out. The handlers prune and also guide the vines in the direction they wish them to go. If there's no handler to do this, then the vines go wild and choke everything out. And that could be a part of, suicidal ideation or uh, cutting or whatever. Parts just get overwhelmed. But if you've got a handler there, they keep things pruned in such a way that all the parts can continually operate. The only intervention there can be is for God to clip the vines, and that is God having you get triggered and remember an incident. And in doing so, generally I'll have an incident. I'll remember a certain thing like the bestiality thing. And then later I'll remember another bestiality incident because they have a thread that connects them, the bestiality or a thread or a vine or a connection. And that would be things of a similar nature, scientific to scientific, MKU to MKU, or SRA to SRA. So the only intervention there can be is for God to clip the vines. Otherwise, if someone is not saved, the vines are allowed to grow, which would explain why so many survivors use energy work and hypnotism, etc., basically witchcraft in order to heal. But all it's doing is encouraging different vines from the same firewall to grow. So that witchcraft, energy work, hypnotism, uh, meditation, ley lines, it is it is feeding and encouraging your parts to thrive, not to heal. So that's part of the reason why I get so upset about all of this new age business being promoted to survivors to heal, yoga and Kundalini energy work and just all of it. It's not the right way to go. So this is June 23rd of 2024. I stayed up until about 2:30 last night watching my sessions with Jon. I watched some more again just a little while ago. This afternoon, I worked on my IFS emotional impact graphs. And I have to say, there was a part that was causing all sorts of confusion and sabotaging and creating mayhem. Once I realized that, I was trying to figure out what part it was. It's Grandmaster and Mistress. They just throw things around and create a lot of confusion and sabotage. Once I realized that, I started talking to them. I said, okay, if that's what you're going to do, fine. I'm going to keep at this and keep at this until I get it. You can screw it up and delete it 100 times, and I'm going to fix it 102 times. I told them to remember what happened when I would lose transcripts. What did I do? Well, I just did it again. So I'm going to go do that here too. Once I laid down that truth, things started getting smoother and smoother, and I was able to finish it. I probably wasted 6 hours over the weekend, and it just kept getting screwed up. But once I acknowledged their presence and what they were doing, and that they were not going to succeed, I was able to finish it up. I also burned my fingers this weekend, and it was them. They are laughing. It was minor burns, but now I know who is the self-harm part. Organizer and puzzle, two parts of me that are conscious and have always been conscious, got together and showed me how to do it one thing at a time instead of flipping back and forth between three different programs. Once I did that, things smoothed out. I watched three more of my sessions with Jon this evening, and I wrote down probably 8 or 10 different notes to follow up on. And I'm going to highly suggest that you record your sessions and rewatch them, maybe not as soon as possible, but just rewatch them at some point in time, because as your understanding and memories increase and you gain more knowledge, and you look back at a session that's, 3 months earlier or 6 months earlier, this new understanding and knowledge you have will help you to understand where you were at 3 months ago, and the two, they will play off of each other, and you'll get even more understanding. Um, So I watched three more of my sessions with Jon this evening, and I wrote down probably 8 or 10 different notes to follow up on. The most significant was that I made about Janet and Sarge. Sarge was just all over Janet. Now, Sarge is my sergeant, got to keep the trains running program part. And Janet is an athlete who sabotages herself because she wants to help other people. And it's more than that, and when I said I was referring to her hassling Janet, but when I was watching it, I had chills up my spine, realizing that Sarge raped Janet, not my part, but and I know now that it was Mr. Mary John at the School Sisters of Notre Dame raped Janet. And I didn't know that until I rewatched a couple of sessions about my old parts. And in rewatching it, my part was like, oh yeah, she raped me. It was, I should say, he was a transvestite masquerading as a nun, anyway. And that Sarge was the man pretending to be a nun. Janet was just confused and perplexed and repelled by all of it. That's when she went to the food table and started eating a lot. Sarge, my part, noticed this after a while and came over and told her to take it easy, that she didn't want to turn into a fatty. And she pinched Janet in the back of the upper arm really badly. Fatty was born in that moment. She wanted to turn fat so that she could not do all those stupid obstacle courses. And she also wanted to be vengeful towards Sarge. Now, at this time, I thought Sarge was the perpetrator called Mr. Mary John, or they called her Sister Mary John. So I know this is a little confusing. Sarge is my part that embodies Mr. Mary John, who used to run the training camp. If she was fat, Sarge or Mr. Mary John would not want to rape her. And if she was fat, she would not have to do all this physical exercise. It was her vengeance and rebelling against Mr. Mary John and the whole training camp. She hates Mr. Mary John. The next thing of note was the Jasons that Nathan Reynolds talked about. I'm going to rewatch his interview with Emma. I also looked up Nixon, and he was there in 1972 and 1974, meaning in Canada when the Queen was there. I need to look up and see the month that the Queen was there and also the month that Nixon was there. Perhaps he was in the audience as well. Right now, one of the parts is telling me that Nixon saw me in Canada, and that's why he requested me at Camp David. And Jack was just over the moon because his person had been selected, meaning me. So I completely forgot all about this. I'm glad I reread it. I need to make a note of this. So that was, what part was in Canada? That was Jonathan, which is now Jared. So put Nixon and Queen. I totally forgot all of that. So see how valuable it is to rewatch your sessions and reread your journals. And no, it doesn't have to be right away, but later on as things, I don't even know if you want to call it ramp up, but I just know that wherever I'm at in the present time with my stuff, if I go back and reread it, it gives these guys an understanding of what was going on with these guys. And then because they're talking to each other, these guys will give these guys more information. It's a cascade of events. They play off of each other. So I strongly recommend it. And now here is the journal from June 24th of 2024. So it's 10 p.m. I'm laying down to go to sleep. We are having a parts puddle. And I was thinking about pins, and I asked her what she would like to do with the basement she was tortured in. Now, this is what I call destroying prisons, which I have done for every single part that has become conscious to me. At first, she said, fill it up with snakes, every last inch of it, and put Dad in there. But we still have to get rid of all of that to get rid of the room, get rid of the house. And then she said, let's use acid. Fill it from the bottom up, the whole house, and let it collapse in on itself. And the acid eat every last inch of it until it's just a big black hole. So that's what we did. Dad melted from the feet up with acid consuming him. Stretch, my other part, felt pretty good about that because she got to watch the ceiling of the basement be dissolved with acid. The very pipes that she hung from and was tortured from melted and collapsed. After we did that, I closed my eyes to go to sleep and snuggle with some parts. and a face appeared in front of me. It was a woman who looked like she had a bicycle helmet on. She opened her eyes and was looking at me, and her eyes were red. I didn't remember this at all either. I need to write this down. Jesus Louise, 6/24/24. Need another worksheet. So 6/24/24. I'll just put cyclist with red eyes. They were shaped like snake eyes, and then they began to grow brighter and brighter. It made me nervous. I got to thinking about when I began riding my bicycle is when I was going through menopause pretty heavily. It was the one thing that helped to burn out a lot of that testosterone that was surging through me. Perhaps that is the part that utilizes cult-like energy or enthusiasm, but I experienced joy while I was riding, so I'm not sure about that. I began to think, I'm beginning to think now that it was the eyes of Mistress with her demon inside of her looking at me. Such evil. Yeah, I'm so glad I'm rereading this. It's morning of the 25th. Slept pretty well. Had enough sleep as well. After Chris went to work, I went out and beat on Ted. As I was thinking about Grandmaster and Mistress and all the parts loyal to the cult. And it hit me earlier in the morning that Angie and Mary, my sisters, are loyal to the cult. I didn't want to face it, but it really is the truth. They're both so resistant to anything I have to say, unless it's in agreement with them. So when I was beating Ted, I included them with the loyal cult members, along with Executioner and the Killers and Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, and Black Brother. I played that song, My Sweet Lord by the Beatles. My sweet Lord, hallelujah. Listen to the lyrics of that song and you'll see why. That song really is quite deceptive. It draws you in with its lovely upbeat sound and beat, and two-thirds of the song is singing about my sweet Lord and hallelujah. It isn't until the last one or two verses where they start singing about my sweet Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. It infuriated me. Those companies, these music companies, intentionally mislead. And that's what Lucifer's job was, to use music to deceive with. And he is still doing it. And I just started screaming at Ted and Lucifer and the devil and Satan and Baal and Moloch and Isis, Osiris, and every last minion of the devil they had ever done to anybody throughout time. To feel it, feel me beating on them. Then I came in, took a small breather before I got on my bike. I went and sat in my chair in my bedroom, which I don't really do too much during the day. I use it in the evening. Bitch started talking to me. I'm discovering a part right now. Bitch is the actual bitch inside of me that calls other women cunts and whores and nasty cunts. She is so angry. I had her beating on Ted as well. She asked me if we could fill up the Balistrary mansion where she was abused with acid the same way the other part did. So she's destroying her prison here. And for the life of me, I can't think of who that is right now. I just read it. That was Pins and Stretch. Oh, it was Pins and Stretch last night. They wanted to fill the basement up with acid and just eat Dad and every last little drop of everything up in the house to collapse it in on itself to just leave a black hole. And that's what we did. Well, bitch really liked that idea, so we did it to her prison. Except with her prison, every last person was present, and as the house was collapsing in on itself, all the other mobsters and everything connected with them seemed to be drawn into the edges and just fell into this acid and was eaten alive and disappeared into the black hole. Now, this is something interesting because at this time, Bitch only remembered 4 perpetrators, and we're destroying her prison. And as we're doing it, we're visualizing this black hole that's created from this acid. And there was probably 20 more people around this black hole that fell in. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Well, it was interesting because that was a part telling me, and I later remembered, I think maybe I don't know, 2, 4, 6 weeks later, that, oh, it wasn't just four perpetrators, it was like 24. And so without knowing it, she showed me while we destroyed her prison. And I think another aspect of destroying prisons is that the parts you're co-conscious with and that are destroying the prison get a release, and they know they don't have to ever go back to that place again, and they live with me in the present time, or in at a very low subconscious level. But because we've destroyed the prison, the other parts that I was not aware of at that time now felt safe enough to process whatever they needed to process to eventually talk to me. So I think destroying prisons is just a massive, massive part of my process anyway. Um, that bitch I was abused by, oh, meaning the perpetrator was a woman. That one that I was abused by decided to hang up on the chandelier. Now, this is as we're destroying the prison. So the one she's hanging on the chandelier until the very last minute while she watched her brothers and other conspirators be eaten alive by the acid until it finally reached her. And when it did, it touched her butthole first. My part, called bitch, was laughing and laughing and laughing that it would begin to eat her alive, the acid from her asshole up. She said that cunt deserves it. She's laughing and laughing and laughing. Once we did that, I got on my bike and started riding. It occurred to me that as my feet and the pedals moved down, that I could be stomping, that I could use my bicycle as another form of beating on Ted, except this time I would be standing with God, stomping on those grapes with him, his grapes of wrath. And so as I was riding, all the parts were visualizing different perps and different things that they were smashing and smashing and smashing with God at their side. And when I got tired at 30 minutes, I asked God to not let me give up. And I kept going and I kept going. I thought if God can keep going, then I can keep going. And we just smashed grapes and smashed perps and smashed them, all while riding my bicycle. As I was riding my bicycle, I was watching Nathan Reynolds' interview with Emma. He really gets parts fired up with anger and rage at the devil and the perps and all the evil throughout the world. So I think I'm going to keep going through Nathan Reynolds' stuff for a while. I have far too much in common with him, too many similarities. I didn't catch them the first time around, but I'm catching them now. So again, it's okay to rewatch things. You have different levels of understanding at different points in time of your healing. And yeah, so you watch something the first time and it triggers you and it pulls parts up and you process it and you work it out and you destroy their prisons. And in doing the process that I use, it then frees up the other parts associated with that, or other parts that have a similar thread line, like bestiality or chimeras or um, killings or whatever it may be. It's a cascading event. And if you think about the brain in a neurological fashion, those memories that were created and submerged and you're amnesic of, it's imagine it's a little bubble in your memory, in your brain, a physical little bubble that's not connected to the rest of your brain. You're amnesic to it. It might have a thread to one other thing, or maybe two. And by thread, I mean a neurological connection. But the more you realize it and it becomes more and more real and becomes more and more conscious, the more threads or neurological connections go to other parts of the brain or other parts that might be, now that this one has, say, 20 or 100 new neurological connections, because it has a single thread to one that it is still submerged in your amnesic of, but because this one is now active and there's blood flowing through it and there's activity, that thread kind of gets activated and energized and starts to tickle that one that's still asleep. And as it tickles that one says, hey, wait a minute. It gives you a little memory, just a whisper or a drop of information. But if you ignore that drop of information, it stays there. But if you record it and put it in all of your charts and graphs, or for me, put it in all my charts and graphs, then that one starts to get blood flow and energy and starts waking up and more neurological. And so that's what I mean by it's a cascading event. So anyhow, let me go to the last journal entry here. This is June 24th of 24. So last night I was laying down to go to bed. Oh, this is the same. Okay, this is different. Sorry, like the same. So last night I was laying down to go to bed. I had a parts pedal and I noticed everything was very quiet. No one was moving very much. And they let me know they are uncomfortable having Grandmaster, Mistress, and David, and Executioner, and Jack just able to hang out. Now, these are my cult loyal parts. They were telling me how the five of them were going around to everybody whispering awful, terrible, horrible things in their ears. And the non-cult loyal parts, they were scared, not comfortable, and happy like before. So I got to thinking about that and realized that these five gatekeepers and loyal cultists were slowly infiltrating my people and scaring them into not being free again. I thought about what I should do about that. I talked to the five of them, but they were kind of tight-lipped and not interested in listening. So I thought that I can't have them infiltrating our community and scaring my people. I thought, well, each one needs a guard. And I asked my guards if they would accompany each of these individuals. That was Jonathan, Finnegan, Knight, and Katerina. And I was racking my brains to think of another one. And all of a sudden, Trip popped up and said he wants to do it. I said, okay. Now, these are all my fighters and warriors. And then I realized everyone is still nervous. I thought, well, the cult members and leaders need to be told truth. So each one needs to have a truth teller hanging around with them as well. And it will be a 2-on-1 kind of deal. So my part Alan, John, Smarty Pants, and Bookworm, and I needed another one. I guess I forgot one. Janet wants to help with that. Okay, so Janet, you stick close with Alan. Like he said, you have been and you can be one of the truth tellers that stays tight with the cult member. So because Janet didn't have a whole lot of truth at that time, I paired her with Alan because he did. Um, and then I realized it's not just about a guard and truth telling, that they also need the influence of Jesus. Boy, they got their backs up over that. The cult members did. So I sent Spirit, Claire, Michael, and Lance, and I needed a fifth one. Any volunteers for that? Bullet says she's willing to be because she knows Spirit very well. Now, this is fascinating because it wasn't until about, I'd say 3 weeks ago, that I remembered Bullet's incident in full, completely, to realize Jesus came and saved me then. But at the time of writing this, I didn't know that. But Bullet knew it, but I didn't. That's fascinating. So the five loyal cult member gatekeeper now have five guards, one each to keep them from the others and whispering in their ear intimidations. I have five truth tellers to start teaching those cult members the truth that they were lied to. And I have five members of God's team to have the influence of Jesus on each one of them as well. Martha, my mom part, says she wants to jump in there and help wherever she can. So, Martha, feel free. Martha is going to relay information between Janet and Alan and John. Perfect. I slept well. I was telling Chris how good I felt. Went to bed at 10, got up at 5 with him. I have, I keep having the song go through my head. I feel good. Na, 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 na. I knew that I would. So we will let those 5 protectors interact with the 5 cult members who are still loyal to the cult and are atheists, along with the influence of God and the influence of the truth. And I'm also going to say that no one gets back in their cages, not even the cult members. And I'm going to ask you, cult members, to look out through my eyes and see where we are now. Everybody look through my eyes and see where we are and when we are, and that we're all going to take care of each other. And I'm going to oversee everything. And if any of you have any ideas, please tell me. Any memories come up, feel free to share them with me. Each one of those cult member gatekeepers has 3 positive influences on them, and over time they will learn the truth. They will feel the presence of God. They will know that they can't go whispering in your ears and scare you anymore, and at some point they will change. Everyone feels pretty good about that, except those 5 cult members. I tell you what, everybody, you're an awesome team. I couldn't have asked for a better group of individuals to live inside of me. Thank you. And all of you little ones, I want you to hang out with someone older than you so that they can teach you whatever it is you want to know. And Jackie, yes, we will go feed the birds. I didn't forget. Or no, I said I did forget. But we won't forget the little flower on our nails. That's for you. Oh, I remember that day I did my nails and I put little flower stickers on there for Jackie. And I love each and every one of you. And I will admit it's hard to say, but even the cult members, you are welcome in our group, but only if you bring love and joy and peace and freedom and strength and growth. But 30 minutes later, I got the sense that the parts are not working with the cult members are still nervous and uncomfortable. So the ones that are not paired up. So I asked my sweet Dixie part if she would go around from person to person and just give them her sweet, loving kindness and be playful with them. She agreed. I also asked Tommy, who is a cat part, because he's a little love bug too. He's going to go around and comfort people as well. Now, Jerry and Patches, which are 2 other cats, are more aggressive. So if they see the 5 cult members or one of the others who is triggering into cult member status, to give us an indication by, oh, by scratch, but by not scratching. Oh, okay, because but definitely barking and growling and pointing that out. And if that happens, another stronger, more spiritual part or settled part can go over and spend some time with that person. And Taffy, my dog from childhood, is very happy to go around to the 5 cult member groups and put in her 2 cents as well. So the animals are going to be helping as well. So all of you that are still nervous, I want you to play with Tommy and Dixie. They will definitely make you feel better. And other animals are going to sniff out anything that we've missed. So if you get an indication from them something is going on amongst you, let me know. And we will send someone over that's more positive and stable to hang out with that part. Everybody likes that. I hope everything is covered now. I just went out and worked on Ted, put on the James Brown song, I Feel Good. Well, apparently that is Grandmaster and Mistress and Executioner's song. They feel good hurting people. And they're saying that they knew that they would. So I said, fine, beat away on Ted. That song was over, and I put on another song, Round and Around. And that's when my warriors stood up and said to the cult members, okay, you think you're bad? Check us out. They beat the snot out of those cult members on Ted. Those cult members were pretty darn scared and nervous. The cult members could see just how furious everyone is, so they backed off a bit. We don't give a damn if they feel good about being bad. We feel good about being good, and we're going to show them. that we have the strength and the wisdom and the heart to fight like God's warriors against them. They will not win. And some of the young ones got in there and had their licks as well. I'm fired up. Gonna get on my bike now. Oh, and something surprising I discovered was that Sarge, even though she was loyal to the cult members, never really felt good about it. She was happy to do her job. She liked her job, but she didn't like doing it for them. She's very happy to work for God's team now. So right then, a loyal cult member switched to being a non-cult member. I realized today that after I sent Kelly, that's my husband's stepdaughter, the remainder of the money, that the bitch part of me was mad. She thought because Kelly was a bitch to us, she didn't deserve any help. Yesterday, when Chris asked me and we talked about it, my other parts that have been where Kelly has been were all for it and perfectly fine and happy with it. So here's just a reminder. My husband's daughter was having a particularly hard time. She had to leave her job, kicked her boyfriend out. I think there was domestic abuse going on. Wound up going back to live with her mother, and she needed some money. Well, when I was talking with my husband, the parts of me that had experienced the same thing, needed help and didn't know where to go to for it, et cetera, were compassionate and wanted to do that for Kelly and my husband. But the next day, the bitch part of me that hated these nasty, awful, women said, "Why the hell did we do that?" So I had parts, starting to be in disagreement over what we did. Yesterday, when Chris asked me, we talked about it. My other parts that had been where Kelly has been were all for it, perfectly fine and happy with it. Bitch didn't say anything until today. And it was after I beat up Ted and played the song Rich Girl. There's a line in there that says that you can rely on your old man's money. It's part of the lyric. Well, Kelly certainly gets to do that. But I talked to Bitch and I said, well, thank you for holding your tongue and allowing the others who are scared and nervous and on their home own and need help before to help Kelly now. She says, we'll just wait and see what she does with it. This is Bitch. But I don't think Kelly is lying this time. And yeah, anyhow. Um, Jackie, the part that had bestiality at 3 years old, Jackie went shopping with me today and had a grand old time. And Wolf did the driving. She told me driving is all about being a wolf pack and how to keep pace and speed up if you need to, or slow down if you need to. So Wolf is all over the driving. I sent Kelly, she's not really my stepdaughter because I didn't get to know her. She's my husband's daughter. I sent Kelly a text telling her to let me know that she received the money so I wouldn't worry about the technological oops, how things happen. But I also sent a few paragraphs recommending John's site and what it has done for me. So I hope she checks out survivorsupport.net and have some good insights. So that's the journal entry for this time. As I said, I'm so sorry that the session got, I don't know, I can't remember if we had technical difficulties or if it got deleted from my data banks or if I just hit stop record or what happened. One of my saboteur parts lost it. And I'm sorry, there's only 30 minutes, so that's why there's so much journal reading. Um, I guess that's it for today. I want to thank y'all for coming along with me on my journey and listening. And, I apologize for the crass language and words. And also, I have to keep falling back on something that God said to me and continues to say to me about the journal readings because I want to couch it and take things out and whatever, but he says, just read the journals. Don't edit them, don't change them, just read the journals. So That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to encourage you while you're writing your journals, let whatever comes out of your mind or your mouth come out of your mouth. Don't censor it. Let it be. It's a part has to express itself. And yeah, I got a part that cusses like a sailor, and I'm sorry about that. So anyhow, yeah, don't censor yourself. Just let it come out. Rewatch your sessions, reread your journals at different points in time. They will play off each other. And as I said, that cascade of events, a cascade of memories, they will trigger each other. And it happens on a physical level within your brain. The neurological structures that have been isolated, separate and away from each other with just one thread somewhere. As you start working with them, there'll be more blood flow, more energetic or more energy moving through there. Your memories are going to start energizing other things, and more and more and more will come. It happens on a physical level in your physical structure of your brain, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I can't recommend it enough. So anyhow, thanks y'all, everyone for listening. Thanks for putting up with my scratchy voice. It's from screaming. And I'll just throw out there as well that I'm actually screaming into a blanket or a towel now. I know in the very beginning I didn't care for that. But after all these months, what is it? 11 months of doing TED Talks and letting myself yell and scream, and I didn't care if the world heard it. My parts know they're free to do that, but also I don't have to freak out the world either, or my husband. So if you're in an apartment, it still works. You just have to scream. Now, I did 5 times really long and really loud, and I blew my vocals out. So maybe 2 or 3 times at a shot, so you don't lose your voice. Anyhow, thanks for listening. I love all you guys. I ask God to give you exactly what you need when you need it. I ask God to also open your eyes and ears so that you can hear Him and feel Him and cleave to Him and follow His instructions. He's healing you in the exact way that you need it. Okay? I ask Jesus to surround you with impenetrable shields of His love, with His holy angels standing guard, to send to you His warrior angels in times of spiritual warfare. I ask Jesus to increase your knowledge, your understanding, your wisdom, your discernment, to give you eyes to see Him, ears to hear Him, a heart to feel Him and cling to Him, and a voice to speak His words. I ask Jesus to bind all the powers, principalities, spiritual wickedness, and dark forces in all places on all planes of existence from you, and to block astral projection to you. I ask Jesus to surround you, your loved ones, your pets, your homes, your properties, your vehicles, and your travels with His protection. And above all, give you exactly what you need when you need it, give you comfort, love, strength, and courage for your journey, remembering. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.